All right, I think we're good. One of those days. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm in Asheville, North Carolina. Just finished up 2 weeks of retreats I was attending with Michael Wynn, some really powerful internal alchemy work, absolutely phenomenal breakthroughs I had, amazing experiences. It's been phenomenal. And something I want to mention before continuing is that I'm hosting my first in-person sexual kung fu men's retreat here in Asheville, North Carolina, in August 7th through 11th. There's more details in the description of this video. There's more details in my Instagram bio. But again, it's going to be 5 days of intense training, basically, for men. We're going to be starting the day with an hour of Qigong practice, an hour Qigong class in the morning, have a little breakfast, and then two different 3-hour training sessions. So 6 hours of training plus an hour Qigong class. And we're going to be getting into, of course, energy cultivation practices, emotional clearing, breath work, opening the energy channels of the body, and sexual energy circulation, sexual energy cultivation practices. And there's going to be an hour class at night as well, doing some stretching, some meditation practices, and shui gong, which is practices to prepare for sleep. So that's all going to be going on in person at the Sexual Kung Fu Retreat coming up in August. Super excited for that. Again, there's more details. You can sign up and apply for that. There's a link in this video on YouTube. There's a link in my Instagram bio. So already have a good group signed up, so spaces are filling up. I'm super excited for this. It's really about, with this kind of work, it's really about the in-person training. In my experience, I started learning from books and videos and things, and it's great. You can get a lot. You can go far that way. But it was when I went to my first retreat back in 2016 that it really made a powerful transformation for me. When you're out of your daily routine, you're out of your normal day-to-day life, different environment, spending multiple days just completely immersed in intensive training in this work, it changes who you are. And that's what really builds up this momentum to help you really go deep in the practice and sustain it in your day-to-day life. That's what made me really love practicing Qigong, was being in that type of experience, going absolute in-depth in the training and just keep the momentum going from that. So anyways, that's the Sexual Kung Fu Retreat coming up in August. Super stoked for that. And with that, I'm going to talk about, today I'm going to be talking about male multiple orgasms. And we're going to do some Q&A as always as well. So a lot of men don't know that they can actually have multiple orgasms. The typical pattern for a man during sex is that he becomes aroused. His arousal builds, he has some sexual pleasure, he ejaculates, and that's it. He has to, the stereotype is that the man rolls over and falls to sleep at the end of sex. And it's true for a lot of men. But it doesn't have to be this way. Men can actually have multiple orgasms in a row without ejaculating. And first of all, why would a man want to do this? Because again, this normal pattern for a man, the ejaculatory orgasm, is one that results in ultimately dissatisfaction, because you're discharging your energy. An ejaculatory orgasm is a discharge of energy. So during sex, you're building up all this tremendous, vital sexual energy. But most men don't actually benefit from that, because at the end they release it, they ejaculate, because it's out of habit, out of impulse, and so they lose that powerful charge that they've cultivated through sex. And so when you learn to have these non-ejaculatory orgasms over and over again, if you choose, you don't experience that refractory period at the end of sex. That's one of the biggest things for men, is no longer needing to experience the refractory period, where you're basically impotent, right? For maybe a few minutes, maybe hours, maybe even days, when you're really depleted, right? And so the main benefit, of course, being that ejaculation, or that ejaculatory orgasm, is no longer the focal point of sex, and it's no longer the ending point of sex as well. So you can basically have sex for as long as you want and be ready to go 24/7 and actually get much, much more pleasure and fulfillment out of it. And your partner will as well. Here's a big problem that, modern relationships run into is that there's often this imbalance in sex between women and men. Women are water, men are fire. Men are quick to ignite their sexual fire, but it's easily burned out. It's easily exhausted and extinguished by the woman's water. And whereas women take much longer to heat up, much longer to be brought to a boil, but they stay hot for a lot longer. So typically, women kind of consume men's sexual fire. So this is why it's important for men to train in this, so that they can match the women on this level, and it becomes a little more even in the bedroom. And this way, both partners reach much more pleasure, much more satisfaction, and it creates much more intimacy, because for a lot of men, sex ends up becoming just all about them trying to reach this ejaculatory orgasm, just trying to get off as soon as they can. And then once they do, it's over, right? They can't really stay connected to their partner or keep having sex. So it changes the whole dynamic from, again, this short-lived ejaculatory orgasm, obsessing over that, into more of a sustainable experience where you can experience these powerful orgasms over and over, but it's not the type of orgasm where you're shooting energy out of your body. So it's important to understand that for men, the orgasm and the ejaculation are two different physiological energetic processes happening within the body. And it's simply a matter of separating these things. And of course, there's many different types of orgasms men can have, right? Men can have genital orgasms, they can have full body orgasms, they can have prostate orgasms, belly orgasms. There's many different types of orgasm that men can have. But basically, um, learning to do this is, I think it's a very crucial skill for men. And I think one of the reasons why it's very uncommon for men is that we've been conditioned to experience sexuality in a very certain way. Most of us learned about sex through porn, which really focuses on the ejaculation for men. The ejaculatory orgasm as being like the holy grail of sexual experience. It's all about that money shot at the end. That's what, everything's just leading up to that. Everything's just so that can happen. And when that kind of becomes out of the equation, when you're no longer obsessed with this ejaculatory orgasm, but you open up to a new type of sexual experience, a new type of orgasmic experience, it really liberates you. And sex no longer becomes this kind of fleeting, short-lived experience that you can never really get enough of, but yet you're always obsessed with. And it becomes something that starts to fulfill you more through the rest of the day, through the rest of your week. And it's really the difference between healing and nourishing you versus just this impulsive, quick fix thing that you do to try to get off. And so you're probably wondering by now, if you're new to all this, I know some of you guys have been following me for a while. You know all about the stuff, but some of you who are new, this is, new news to you. You're probably asking, how do I do this, right? So I'm going to share a few, practical techniques and methods you can use to start to experience this non-ejaculatory orgasm and have these orgasms, these non-ejaculatory orgasms over and over and over. Men can have multiple orgasms. So having, I mentioned a bit ago how there's different types of orgasms that men can experience. So the most common one that everyone's focusing on is the genital orgasm. The most common technique that you'll see, people who are teaching about this, they usually teach you to do a Kegel, a pelvic floor squeeze, basically to go right up to the point of ejaculation. And once you start having that orgasm, you squeeze the Kegel muscle, which holds in the semen, and you can have a dry orgasm this way. I will say that yes, you can have dry orgasms this way, but I, I got good at this method a while ago, but I never really liked it because it's a very limited type of orgasm. It's a genital centered orgasm. And another thing here is, you guys know I talk a lot about pelvic floor tension being a serious issue for men that can lead to premature ejaculation, basically where every time your penis is being stimulated, you're squeezing the pelvic floor muscles. So over tightening these muscles tends to strengthen that hypertension pattern, right? So I don't recommend the doing lots of Kegling, really squeezing the pelvic floor. I did that for a long time, and eventually it made things, worse for me. And another thing here using this technique is usually you will actually experience known as a retrograde ejaculation, where it seems like you're having a dry orgasm, but actually the semen is simply being redirected into the bladder, and then you urinate it out. So it's like it's not truly a dry orgasm, though it seems to be, because you're urinating the urine, you're urinating the semen out, and you're still losing that energy anyway. So it's no different than ejaculating. So that's what most people are teaching. And that's not really what I'm talking about here. Yes, you can use that method. There's plenty of people teaching that, but I'm talking about something a bit different. So there's another method, and it's similar to what I just mentioned, the like kegling at the point of ejaculation, but there's kind of I will say it's kind of an entry level method you can use to start having a more non-ejaculatory orgasm experience, which is basically you go right up to where you're about to ejaculate and you relax completely, like absolutely relax. Relax your pelvic floor, relax your entire body, just melt, breathe deeply. And this, beginnings of the subtle orgasm will come, but you will not ejaculate, and you'll feel that kind of intense buildup in the genitals. Sometimes it will spread through your entire body. So basically, you come very close to ejaculating, stop stimulation 100%, relax deeply, breathe, and you will likely experience this subtle, initially subtle, but can build up to very powerful experiences of orgasm. If you go too far, you will ejaculate. So this, some practice required with this method, but this is still a relatively superficial method, which is again more this genital centered orgasm. But I think a lot of men will enjoy this method. It's quite simple, but we'll get to the more sexual kung fu techniques, I would say, which is really about having energetic orgasms, which is about building this charge of orgasmic energy into the whole body, so that let me put it this way. Basically, what's happening, what's causing a male orgasm, a male ejaculatory orgasm, is this pressure, this arousal is building up in the genitals as you're having sex, as you're masturbating, whatever. This pressure is building. You feel it building, and it starts to build up tension in the pelvic floor, that it starts to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. And eventually you hit this maximum point of where you can no longer hold any more tension, and it has to release that tension. So the release for most men is the prostate starts spasming, and it releases the fluid out the penis. This is an ejaculation. So that orgasm is the spasming of your prostate, and it's your life force moving out of your body. It's very pleasurable, but then, you feel like you've lost something afterwards. You feel a bit deflated after this, and you can't really keep going. You've lost your energy. So the alternative to this is the real sexual kung fu technique, is as the energy is building, rather than just releasing it out the genitals, you redirect that pressure internally. So you're breathing it up from the genitals, up the spine, up into the glands, up into the microcosmic orbit, which is this energy channel connecting the whole body, up the back, down the front. So you're releasing this energy internally through these pathways of chi, these energy meridians in your body. And this causes you to build up into the state of full body orgasm, because that energy is now, rather than being compressed in your genitals, it's being diffused through the entire body. So over time, it starts to build and build and build. It's much more subtle initially, because you're used to just this intense concentrated energy in the genitals spasming as it shoots out. And so once you build it up through the entire body, you start to feel this initially subtle state of orgasm, but eventually it builds into this powerful state of full body orgasm. And that's how you train for that. Basically is microcosmic orbit practice, learning to open up this energy pathway, learning to relax your mind and body, being able to connect your mind and your body during sex. So meditation is important training for this, because there's a lot of stimulation, there's a lot of distraction during sex, and so you need to be able to control your mind, keep your mind and body calm, because tension and overexcitement equals ejaculation. So you remain calm, and you're bringing this energy through your body with your breath, with your awareness, and you start to build into these powerful states of full body orgasm. And that's how men can have these multiple full body orgasms over and over again. And it obviously takes a bit of practice. It takes rewiring your old habits, because this is the biggest thing. The biggest challenge for men is that they have these old sexual habits. They're used to having sex in a certain way. They're used to jerking off in a certain way. our sexual habits become very, very ingrained, and we just unconsciously do the same things we've always been doing over and over again. So to try to go against that, to try to do something new, it can be a challenge for a lot of men because we almost always go back into what's familiar, what's the most easy, what's the most effortless. And this is true kung fu. Sexual kung fu is skill, discipline attained over a period of training, building your willpower. So you're starting to overcome your old patterns, overcome your old thought forms, overcome that which is easy and work against the grain, go against the flow a bit. But by doing this over and over, by training your mind and body, through breath work, through qigong, through meditation, um, this new experience of bringing the energy up rather than just allowing yourself just to go right to an ejaculatory orgasm, having some willpower to hold that energy in, circulate it throughout your body. When you get used to that, that becomes your new normal experience, and it's just a matter of training, really. My experience with this has been, it was an interesting learning curve in that when I first started to do this, again, it felt a bit unnatural. It was like, okay, but I really just want to ejaculate. But I noticed when I would use these techniques, when I would not allow myself to just ejaculate, but I would draw the energy through my body, stimulate it, and then store it in the body. It felt very pleasurable. And there was no, and I, instead of going to that ejaculation where it's all releasing, I would hold it within my body. And I remember, I was a musician at the time. I was learning this. I went out to, I was out playing a gig at a bar or a club or something. And I just felt this like, just this presence, this confidence, just this like, I felt this juice in my body, this magnetic energy, and people were reacting to me differently. It's just there was just a certain vibe I could feel I was putting out from this sexual energy I was radiating, and it made me feel very in the flow. It made me feel very confident, very creative. So it really changes you when you start to engage in new sexual habits. You start to build up and circulate your sexual energy rather than releasing you, and this makes a massive difference. It starts to carry into all other areas in my life. I started to become much more disciplined in all other areas of my life. I noticed a lot of my bad habits starting to fall away because I was learning to circulate my energy, getting my system into balance. And, I no longer went for what was easy and the most instant gratification. I started to work a bit harder to really develop my mind and body and have this discipline. So, yeah, that's male multiple orgasms. It's been this is something every man should know because it will make you uh, first of all have much more discipline and self-empowerment, much more satisfaction and pleasure, and you will also be able to connect with your partner a lot better and hold a better space for them. Women need to have a safe space to be held by the masculine so they can go deep in their own sexual experience. And when you're just trying to rush your way through sex, just trying to use your partner to get yourself off to an ejaculatory orgasm so you can release your energy into them to release some stress, it's just not a very good dynamic in the long run. So, it's very deep work. But if you work with this, do the practices, do the training, it will change your life. And if you're wondering where to start, I have a lot of playlists on YouTube. I recommend checking out my sexual kung fu exercise playlist on YouTube because, talking about this is great, but you need a daily practice where you can put this into action, start training, and that's when you'll start seeing the results. So with that, I'm going to get into the Q&A here. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. And again, I want to mention that I'm hosting a men's retreat here in Asheville, North Carolina next month, August 7th through 11th. 5 days of intensive training in sexual kung fu, qigong, breath work, meditation, sexual cultivation practices. It's going to be phenomenal. And this is going to be a fully clothed retreat. We're not going to be like, jerking off in groups or anything like that. It's going to be classy. We're going to be fully clothed, doing the internal practices. So find more information about that retreat. There's a link in this YouTube video. There's a link in my Instagram bio. TG Stryan says, I'm on day 5 on semen retention. Is it normal to feel worse? Please elaborate on it. Well, I mean, the thing is that there's so many, what's affecting how you feel on a day-to-day basis is not just whether or not your ejaculation. That is one factor. It's definitely an important factor, but there's so many other factors as well. And it could be that, you're used to having these vices, these things that you turn to for instant gratification when you're feeling at a low state. So normally you would go jerk off to porn, or something like that to get your fix. And so it kind of numbs you, it numbs your system overall. And because you're no longer doing that, you're allowing yourself to really feel what you're actually feeling. Uh, your body's starting to come back into homeostasis and you're feeling that you've actually been at a low. You're now allowing yourself to feel that fatigue, that depletion, because you've just been um, wasting your energy. So yes, sometimes you will feel worse because you're actually allowing yourself to feel what's happening in your body. You're not just numbing it with porn and substance or whatever, right? But it could also be something else too. Again, there's a lot of things. Semen retention is simply one part of a holistic lifestyle for men. If you overly obsess on this one thing and think that it's going to be a fix all for everything, it's not. It's simply the stopping of a leak of your gene. But there's a lot of other ways you waste your energy too. So, are you how's your mind? Do you allow your mind just to run around in circles, stressing you out, overthinking, over worrying, fantasizing? um, are you eating healthy? Are you drinking clean, pure water? Are you exercising? Are you getting out in nature? Are you doing qigong, meditation? There's so many things to keep yourself in balance. Semen retention is just one aspect. Daniel Porter says, "Can I practice this with my hand?" Yes, you certainly can. I think that masturbation, or I would call it, I like to call it self-cultivation, has less of a negative connotation, less of a shameful uh, kind of weight to it. I think it's a great tool for men to learn these practices, and that's actually what I recommend, because it's difficult to learn how to completely change your sexual dynamic when you're having sex with a partner, usually because there's so much excitement, and you usually, again, just go back to what's easy and comfortable for you. So to train, I recommend doing it on your own, where you practice self-stimulation and practice focusing on breathing deeply, not just, being in your mind and your head, obsessing about sexual imagery, but feeling what's happening in your body, learning to circulate the energy through your channels, manage your arousal levels. Yes, I think it's much easier to train in this on your own first. And then when you master that, you bring it into the bedroom. It's like a, musician practicing his scales alone in his room with a metronome before he goes out and tries to jam with the band. Sebastian says, "Would you consider a cabergoline pill the solution to cancel the refractory period? It inhibits prolactin." I do not, these instant gratification, take a pill, try to fix this. What this may just, you have to be careful with this stuff, right? You don't know what the long-term side effects are. Like anything that's synthetically affecting your hormones in your body very often has long-term consequences. So a better approach is to, you know, practice sexual kung fu. Get your body and your mind into balance, get your hormones into balance. When you practice sexual kung fu, when you learn how to circulate your sexual energy through your body, when you rebuild your gene, this is the biggest thing that, the refractory period, when it's really intense, when you feel heavily fatigued, really depressed, really just low after an ejaculation, it usually means that you're depleted, and it means that you should go longer between ejaculations and also be supporting your core energy, your kidney energy specifically. Chinese medicine, kidneys, the kidney energy is your sexual energy. It's your core vitality. So when you have really healthy hormones, when you have, full kidney chi, and when you know how to circulate the sexual energy during sex, pull it out of your genitals, and then if you ejaculate, you will not feel depleted. So, um, yeah, you can take a pill and not change any aspects of your life and hope that fixes things for you, but it's probably just going to cause more problems for you in the long run and not really make you face these things that your body's talking to you about. So, I prefer the more natural, organic approach of doing the practice. Here's the thing. When you are practicing sexual kung fu, the testicle breathing practice, the orgasmic breathing, you're pulling the essence of the semen out of the physical sperm. It's like you're steaming the sperm. You're pulling the energy out. It's not the semen itself that moves up your spine. There's sometimes this misconception that you're actually moving semen up your spine. You're moving the essence, the jing qi, the essence of the sexual energy up in your body, and you're harvesting that and storing it in your dantian. So it's like you're cooking the sexual energy, pulling that yang spark of life out of it, and you store that. So if you ejaculate, it's like you're shooting out an empty shell, and then an ejaculation here and there doesn't make a difference. So I think ultimately this is the best long-term solution. Okay, here's a question. Life of Sun says, how do you deal with retrograde ejaculation considering that you have done all of the redirection practices right? Well, you probably haven't done them right if you're having a retrograde ejaculation. Here's the thing. You should not be with these sexual kung fu techniques, you should not be hitting the point of no return. That's the only way you're going to have a retrograde ejaculation is if you hit the point of no return. There's often a misunderstanding in these techniques that you're going up to the point of ejaculation and then drawing the energy. You should never hit that point in the first place. This is the whole thing is, the methods are so that you never hit that point. That's not when the full body orgasm happens. It's not in conjunction with your ejaculatory orgasm unless you're, again, going for the genital orgasm techniques I was talking about. But that's not really what I focus on. So the whole thing is you never reach the point of no return because if you do, there's not much you can do to avoid the genital orgasm, the spasming of the prostate, the peak orgasm. You're going to have the peak orgasm and lose some energy at that point. So don't ever hit the point of no return. That's why you're drawing up the energy beforehand. Don't go beyond like 70 to 80% when you're training this stuff, or not beyond 70 to 80% to the point of the no return. And you will never have a retrograde ejaculation. So don't hit the point of no return, basically. Okay. Gold Okologbo says, does it get better on semen retention the longer you go? It may and it may not. So again, this comes down to there's often this I see this thought form, this idea, this belief a lot in the semen retention no fap community. Like the longer you go, the more power you have, the more energy you have, and all these things. So I would say there can be some truth to this, and at the same time, not necessarily because I think that there's a sweet spot with semen retention, in that the first month or so, hormones are on the rise, testosterone's on the rise. 2 weeks you feel better than after 1 week. 3 weeks you feel even better after 2 weeks. But there's often kind of a plateau for men. For myself, it happens around a month, sometimes even less than a month. Once I started rebuilding my gene, I would often hit it around a week or two. And beyond that, you don't really, your testosterone doesn't really increase more. Your energy levels don't necessarily increase more. For some men, it will. Again, there's so many factors to this. Everyone's body is different too, but it's not like the longer you go, energy just keeps going up and up and up. Something that a lot of men run into when practicing semen retention is stagnant energy. Their energy is not moving in their body, it's just stuck in their balls. This is the biggest thing that I think it's important to understand if you are practicing semen retention, is that if you're just retaining your semen, that's all you're doing. You're not working with the sexual energy consciously, you're not circulating it through your body. You're almost guaranteed to run into this stagnance where you just feel stuck, you feel irritable, you feel angry, because all you're doing is feeding the lower energy centers of your body. You're feeding your genital energy by building the semen there, when you're not redistributing it to the upper centers of the body. Bring it up to the dantian, up to the heart, up to the crown. That's what gives you the most power. Well, I think power is not a great word here. The most kind of energy and flow in your life when you're practicing semen retention. If you're doing that, if you're transmuting the energy through sexual kung fu practices, then yes, over time you will probably feel an overall building of energy. But if you're not doing that, then you may actually start to feel pretty shitty after a month or two, right? That's why doing it in a holistic way, understanding what you're actually doing when you're practicing semen retention, having more energy isn't always better if your system can't handle it. And again, if you're not able to refine it into a more usable energy, not just something that makes you feel really horny and irritated 24/7. And it's also potential that hormone levels actually start to drop on longer retention periods for men. For most men, this will be about 6 weeks to 3 months for some men. It really depends. That's why I encourage you to experiment. Try going a month. Try ejaculating after 2 weeks. Try going 3 months. Just see what works the best for you. You start to listen to your body and you will find. But this obsession about simply, I can never ejaculate, I must go as long as I can, it's often just feeding your ego, because you want to tell people, oh, I've gone 300 days, I'm such a badass. You're not really doing it for yourself. You're doing it to try to please other people. And that's not a very good reason to be doing it, I would say. So it's all about what's making you feel balanced. And your overall focus should be, how do I use this energy? How do I recirculate it? How do I recycle it in my body? How do I bring it to all the glands and organs? How do I put it into my art, my business, my relationships with others, right? And when you're focusing on those things, it no longer becomes about like, oh, how many days have I gone? Because you're simply creating this dynamic, this flow in your life. So it's I think that your perspective and your intention is very important when you're doing this work. Savage 5234 says, "Hey man, do you know about brahmacharya?" Yes, I'm quite familiar with brahmacharya. That's actually the first thing learned as far as semen retention practice. I remember back in 2011, I heard about this. I was like, "Oh, sounds amazing! I'm going to do it." And it lasted about 3 days because I didn't have any techniques to work with the energy that's building up when you do this. Right? Brahmacharya is very unrealistic for a lot of people. It's basically complete celibacy, and I don't think that's always a beneficial thing, because our sex drive and sex itself has a very powerful function, I would say, in our energetic, physical health, and even our spiritual evolution as well. To deprive yourself from this isn't always beneficial, especially if you're forcing yourself to do it. I know that there's a lot of kind of religious dogma and very spiritual paths talk about this, but you have to really look at this thing and say, is this simply suppression of an important part of myself, or is it truly something serving me? Right? You always have to watch out for dogma in these various paths. Sightings of the unknown says, "My dude, been really making breakthroughs in my partner and my partner and I's sex life, and you've been such a catalyst for that. Thank you so much." Excellent. Glad to hear it. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, you start integrating this work into your life, it's life changing. It will improve your relationships, improve your relationship with yourself. It's life changing. Mr. Julian 1154 says, "I do a lot of reverse Kegels, relaxing and stretching. It was a real game changer for me. How far can I get with it? Can I completely get rid of contraction?" So as far as like the pelvic floor tension patterns, contraction patterns, um, it comes down to a lot of factors. Yeah, continuing to do the stretches and reverse Kegels and things like that is very, very beneficial. But it may be that you always have to watch out for the contraction, like the pelvic floor tension. It's going to be different every day. Maybe there's a day where you feel a bit more stressed. After you've been feeling calm and relaxed and your body's been feeling great for a while, maybe you had a stressful day. That can affect your nervous system and your physical body, your pelvic floor as well. Spending too much time sitting down, or maybe it's just a day where you're a bit more sensitive. And specifically, the so if this is a penis, this area right here underneath the top of the head, underneath the glands, really, the frenulum, this is typically the area that causes those pelvic floor contractions. So when this area is being intensely stimulated, it will almost, even when you're really get good at the relaxation of the pelvic floor, really stimulating the frenulum can still cause a bit of contraction here. So using sexual positions that avoid really hitting the frenulum can be very helpful in this. Just be aware of the angles you're at. I made a video on sex positions for lasting longer in bed, and I talk about this more in that video. It's on YouTube. Ghost says, "Are you vegan or plant-based?" No, I'm not. There was a time I was, but it's not the optimal diet for me. Germ says, "Lately I've been feeling a lot of what I think is chi in my chest, heart chakra, and it's kind of frustrating. Do you know why this might be happening?" So I'm guessing it's not like a pleasant, because sometimes having a lot of chi and energy here can be ecstatic and opening and liberating. But if it's like more of a congestion, heavy feeling, too much heat in the chest, this is fairly common. It can be another thing, a number of things. It can be a lack of kidney yin chi. The cooling water energy helps to cool down the fire. And when there's a deficiency of that, then yeah, there's more of this fire rising up in the body. It can get stuck in the chest, cause congestion, rise up into the head, cause irritability, headaches, compression in the head. Um, and in extreme cases, this can actually cause heart attacks. It's actually the weakness of the kidneys, weak kidney qi, a lack of kidney yin, a lack of water element, and there's no more water to cool that intense fire of the heart, and the heart gets overstrained. Heart attacks, heart disease, this is a very common thing. This is usually a kidney yin deficiency in Chinese medicine. Of course, I can make no medical claims here, but yeah, it could be a lot of things causing this. Do you spend a lot of time, looking at electronic screens? That causes a lot of heat to rise in the body. Stress, irritability, dealing with people that irritate you, too much thinking. These will cause this rising of energy in the body. Too much force, if you're doing certain practices, qigong, energy cultivation, you're using too much force, too much effort, that again will cause this rising and congestion. So the remedy to this is grounding, more calmness, grounding qigong practices, heat clearing qigong practices. Six healing sounds is amazing. Zhan Zhuang standing practice to really root your energy into the earth. Spend time in water. I'm here in North Carolina, and I was out swimming in the river today. All the water here, I love it. There's all these waterfalls, rivers. I really need a lot of water energy support for me. So get in the water, relax, lay on the earth, get out of your head, sink the energy. Paul Bright says, rewiring old habits and patterns is key. Push yourselves, brothers. Practice and don't expect easy ecstasy without growing and changing. Thanks, Paul. Paul took the course. Like you said here, he joined 4 years ago. Paul's killing it. Awesome drummer, awesome musician. But yeah, the stuff takes work. That's why it's Kung Fu. It's serious training here to change these old habits and bring in better habits. Mr. Wolf Mark says, are you sitting on the toilet doing Kegels? No, I am not. Essene Vibe says, I can do the relaxation before point of no return, but I am not so good at circulating energy. Okay, it takes practice. This whole thing is a lot of, this is a common thing in this line of work, this area of practice, is that men just try to go straight for the sexual techniques. Like, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is get really aroused and try to move that arousal energy. It usually doesn't work. I tried to do this in the beginning because it's kind of like, you need to go to kindergarten before you can go to first grade, right? You need to have the foundations in place before you can build the house, right? With sexual energy work, the foundations are everything. This is why it's essential to learn how to circulate just your regular, unaroused, non-sexual energy. This is why I think Qigong is such an amazing tool. And it's one of the main things, I focus on in, how I present this work, because it really helps you to open up the energy channels of the body, get a more direct connection with the Qi in your body to feel it. The mind guides the Qi. The more you can get your mind into your body, the more you can start to guide the Qi. So when you have that kind of foundational work, you're like, okay, I can move my Qi. I know what it feels like. I'm familiar with the pathway. I'm familiar with how to do this. Then you integrate that into your sexual energy. It's much easier. It's actually pretty easy at that point. You just need the foundations in place. This is why it's essential to follow a comprehensive system of training in this if you really want to see the best results. And that's what I offer in my Multi-Orgasmic Man 12-week course. Okay, the other question is, does the semen build up in the prostate? Sometimes I notice semen emerge after prostate massage. So yes, some fluid does build up in the prostate when you're aroused a lot, especially when you're really getting close to the edge of ejaculating, like guys who are just edging right on the edge, about to ejaculate, which is why I recommend not doing that all the time. I like to stay about 70 to 80% the way to the point of no return. I get less congestion and more of this full body feeling of orgasmic energy. So yes, when you're right on the edge, it often builds up in the prostate, which over time gets uncomfortable. It can actually cause pelvic floor pain, like pain in the area because the prostate becomes congested. So you need to release that fluid either, with an occasional ejaculation, or you can also release it with a prostate massage, which, makes a lot of guys really uncomfortable to think about, but it's a healthy thing to do. So, that's a way you can release some of that excess fluid, is a prostate massage, but the best thing is just to not allow it to happen in the first place. Something else that's very helpful for men is to massage, actually it will massage the prostate by sitting on a tennis ball. I don't have one right next to me. I have several tennis balls I often use, but you sit with it underneath your perineum, the soft part of the perineum. You sit on it and it pushes up, spend a minute or two, and that will help to release some of that congestion in the prostate. And also using the testicle breathing, the orgasmic breathing, you draw the energy out of that area from your prostate, from your testicles. Very important. Kaiser Clips says, can we use a fleshlight to practice? You certainly can. One thing I will say though I would say I have different feelings about this. One is that yes, it can be a more realistic degree of stimulation. Well, different than just your hand, right? So it can be a good training tool in that regards to really build some stimulation. But another thing is that these things can be overstimulating. They're still not very realistic. It's plastic or rubber, and it can have kind of a cooling effect on your energy because it's not an actual body. It's not when you're having sex with a partner, there's this exchange happening. Even with your hand, there's a circuit there, right? But when it's this piece of rubber, it can have this coldness and it can kind of pull a bit of your sexual energy out. So just there's pros and cons to it, I will say. But overall, if you want to use one, you certainly can. Mr. Julian says, I do semen retention and don't consume porn. I lose my sex drive really fast without that, which I don't like. I feel better, but kind of miss my drive. Should I do regularly sexual kung fu to fix that? Okay. I'm not sure if you're saying you lose your sex drive really fast without porn, or what it is you lose your sex drive without. But basically, yeah, low sex drive in general. Usually it's low kidney energy, can be liver energy as well, but usually it's a kidney energy thing in Chinese medicine. Hormone levels as well. So you want to support your vitality. What builds testosterone? What builds kidney energy? There's foods, supplements you can take. I think taking like a good herbal formula is good. He Shou Wu is a really amazing tonic herb. I recommend all men take He Shou Wu and goji berries. These are very powerful. It's kind of a yin and yang gene building combination, the goji and He Shou Wu. Actually affects your stem cells as well. This is interesting. But so on a tonic herb level, that will help support this. Make sure that you are exercising your body, getting your blood flowing. This is very important. Not spending too much time sitting down, sedentary lifestyle, staring at a screen all day, terrible for your hormones, terrible for your overall health. Get outside, move your body, exercise, spend time in nature, eat healthy foods. Make sure you're getting all of your essential minerals, your zinc, boron, selenium, magnesium. These are essential for hormone production for men. Also vitamin D. And practice sexual kung fu as well. This is important. Testicle massage, ice your balls, exercise your genitals. Sexual stimulation is very important for our health, for our endocrine system. It really is a use it or lose it situation. And sexual kung fu, you're stimulating it, but you're not ejaculating. You're retaining the energy of it. So, these are some things that will help you to rebuild your sexual vitality. Okay, Mix Lick says, when can I expect to get warm in my belly after semen retention and filling up the lower dantian? 8 days in, my sir. Well, you want to do the dantian building practice. I'm not sure if you're referring to that or not, but I have a guided practice on my YouTube channel called dantian breathing. This is a practice which will help to build the lower dantian. And most people will very quickly start to feel the heat, the vibration, the tangible effects of the dantian from this practice. For others, it will take a while. So work with that practice, and that will get you there, basically. Derek Trevino says, do you think working with all this energy can sometimes be kind of dangerous? I've had some very vivid, scary / dark dreams at times, particularly after very long, highly orgasmic sessions with my girl. All right, we're going to get into we're going to change the channel here and talk about some interesting stuff. There's definitely something to this. When you start to build your energy, start to build your sexual energy and vibrate on a higher level, we could say, it's like your light gets a bit brighter. We're not the only beings on this this planet. There's all these astral beings. They're just like you think of it like changing your channels on a television. They exist just at a different frequency, so we can't see them, but we share a similar kind of space-time continuum here in some ways, right? So you start to attract certain things. You definitely, when you start building your energy to a higher level, these things start seeing. You're like, oh, what's this guy glowing over here amidst all this mud, this low vibrational beings on this planet. This guy's really radiating something. Can I feed off of him? Right? Beings want to feed off of your energy. I definitely experienced this. Same thing. One time I had a very powerful, open sexual experience with my partner, just amazing cosmic orgasm experience. And then that night I had a similar thing. It was this dreams of something kind of feeding off my sexual energy. And I woke up like literally like suffocating. It was a little intense. So protection is important in this regard to kind of guard your energy. What I've started doing is setting up setting containers in your energy field. And it's pretty easy to do this. You simply intend that it's happening. You become aware of your energy field and kind of set boundaries. What you want to do after, when you're having this sexual experience, you're charged up, you're super expanded. You might be expanded like light years out. We really become expansive with this work. So what you want to do at the end of that is pull it in. I learned this the hard way. If you stay expanded, you're very exposed. So you want to pull everything in. It's as simply as, we'll all do this right now. Just feel like you're pulling in from all directions, pulling in your periphery of your energy field, just using your mind to make this happen. You just kind of pull it in to a manageable level around your body. You don't want to stay super expanded all the time. It will diffuse your energy, and you're open and vulnerable to be fed off of. So you pull it in, and then just feel like, what I like to do is feel like I'm being wrapped in golden. It's like a golden silk wrapping around my energy field. Just I do this a lot before I go out in public, whatever. Do it before you go to bed at night, and just see what that does for you. I think you'll find it very helpful. So yeah, protect this energy that you're cultivating. There's a lot of things out there that would like to, feed off the helpless. Okay, Martin's asking, can you explain the tennis ball exercise again? So you sit on it and stay on the same point all while doing the orgasmic breathing. You don't need to do orgasmic breathing while you're doing the tennis ball massage. You certainly can. But again, basically, you simply place this tennis ball under your perineum, the soft area between the genitals and anus, and you'll find a spot where it just kind of presses up into your body. And you can simply stay there for a minute or two, just like acupressure. You can move around a little bit. This is also good for releasing the pelvic floor muscles and some of the fascia tissue there. You just sit on this tennis ball, kind of breathe. You can move, rock around a little bit, and that's all you need to do. You can do orgasmic breathing with it as well, drawing up the energy, but it's not necessary. Just the tennis ball massage will be helpful. Something else I want to share, just rewinding a bit here to this topic of protecting your energy. The most powerful practice in this regard I've learned, I've actually doing a lot of it in the past 2 weeks, learned it from Michael Wynn. I shared it in my video called, what's it called? Activating Energy Body Activation. Go to YouTube, Sexual Kung Fu, Energy Body Activation. This is a powerful technique where you create these counter-rotating energy fields, creates a neutral force energy, which repulses, highly polarized beings. Here's the thing. You don't want to be highly polarized. Dark side relies on making people very, very polarized. What's happening in the world right now? People are getting very polarized in either direction. They're on this side or on this side. Now this other side's their enemy. They're in a war with them. There's no winners in wars, right? So you want to learn to keep your energy neutral. This is really the point of Taoist internal alchemy. It's working with yuan qi, neutral force. When you're excessively polarized, you're rigid, you're stuck, you're easily manipulated. When you're a bit more neutral in your core, in your center, this is how children are, right? Before they're all conditioned to be rigid, opinionated adults. You're not so easily manipulated, and it's not so easy to feed off of you, I will say. So that's a great practice. Derek Trevino says, you've mentioned Shou pretty often. What dosage do you take, and do you take it ongoing, or do you cycle it on and off? Shou is one that I take consistently. It's a great daily tonic herb. It's a great herb. There's a few different forms I'll take it in. I like to take the Shou Dragon Herbs formulation, which is just a encapsulated Chinese herb formula, which has other herbs that support its effects. Really great kidney qi support, sexual energy vitality support. And I'll take 6 capsules a day. I usually just take them in the morning. But recently I've been taking a Showu extract from Jing herbs. Um, and I take a teaspoon in the morning. I take a teaspoon before I go to bed at night. It's a great blood builder. Again, great kidney yin. It's good to take, before you go to bed as well to support that uh, rebuilding of the sexual fluids, the Jing. Yeah, Showu is great. It's one of the top tonic herbs. Jay Britton 6 says, does prostate milking work against your practices? Well, definitely not overall. My understanding of this is that basically, yeah, prostate milking being a prostate massage, which releases the fluid that's built up in the prostate. It's not usually, I believe it's not usually causing a full-on ejaculation, unless you allow it to go that far, I don't know. But typically it's just releasing what's stuck in the prostate, which usually is just not actually sperm itself, but just a lot of, the prostate fluid and some of the seminal fluid. But the thing is that releasing that is fine because once it's there lodged up in the prostate, it's not doing you much good anyway. So that really the only other way for it to go is out. You don't really reabsorb it from the prostate area. So I think prostate massage overall is highly beneficial for men. I am King Isha says, I deal with a very bad mood while in semen retention, terrible attitude, angry at life while in semen retention. So this is very common. This is liver qi stagnation, which is very, unfortunately, very common for men who do semen retention. They just turn into angry maniacs, egotistical angry maniacs. This is a very sure sign that your sexual energy is blocked. It's stuck. The most important thing to do is work with energy circulation practices. This is why I recommend, before you even begin semen retention, it's important to have skills in working with your chi, clearing stuck chi, clearing excessive heat from the system, essential. Otherwise, you're just going to amplify all of your negative emotions, all of your blockages by practicing semen retention. It becomes a dangerous situation. So it's really important that you kind of go back to some foundations. So practice qigong, practice meditation, practice the sexual kung fu exercises before you start trying to work with this atomic firepower, which is sexual energy. Otherwise, yes, like you said, it just sucks. You really don't benefit that much from it. Semen retention should be something that brings you joy, great energy, great creativity, great flow in your life, great harmony, balance, and bliss. And if it's not doing that, something is off. It's because you're not complementing it with the other, essential practices. And again, it's not just like never ejaculate again. That's all you need to do. No, if you're going to practice semen retention, you must recirculate this energy through your body, clear out negative emotional energy as it builds up. This is our essential ABC skills that men need to have if you're going to do semen retention. Mr. Julian says, yes, it's kind of weird. I work out and do a lot for my testosterone production, but I still have issues with sex drive. I was really sick for 4 years and in addition dealt with depression. Something still feels off, seems hard to fix. So if it feels like you're doing everything right and you're still having sex drive issues, sometimes I think it's good to see, get some blood work done to see what your testosterone is. Go to a naturopath who really knows how to work with hormones. I was experiencing this at one point where all of a sudden my testosterone was low, and I was like, "This is, I'm like, okay, I'm not like, I don't have a high sex drive. This is very unusual for me." And it took me a little bit to figure out what's going on, but basically, it was a bit of stress, too much. I was doing too much, and so I was trying to add more things. I'm like, okay, can I take more supplements? Should I do more exercises? And the remedy ended up being taking things away, removing things from my life, removing stresses, removing things from my to-do list, just taking time to just lay on the ground and chill, and that's actually what was incredibly supportive to my water element, my sexual vitality. We live in this age of like, okay, I need to do something, this isn't working. There must be something more I need to do. But sometimes it's, you need to take something away, right? So, it can also be a genetic thing. Some men just have like these genetic conditions where their hormones just get a bit off as they become older. So again, working with a specialist in this may be a good idea if you really want to fix this thing. Jim Boat says, when you're training with Qigong masters, do you refer to them as master like in Kung Fu movies? Is this an actual tradition or just something they say in fiction? Well, there's definitely some truth to this. They definitely do this in China. And a lot of people in the US. I've never trained with someone who I like had to call them master. Like, yes, master, I commit my life to you and that with my children. I mean, this was a huge like Confucian influence in China, like the whole master. I read this book talking about like everything that's expected when like a kung fu student starts to train with his like he's got to like give him a gift the first 3 times they meet, and the teacher's supposed to like refuse it 3 times, and then just all these like ridiculous things. And again, a lot of like Confucian influence, like the person above is like a god and must be worshipped by those below him, kind of this hierarchical structural thing. I don't vibe with a lot of that. So no, I don't. I've never called anyone master. I mean, I've worked with teachers who are masters, and I'd be happy to say, yes, this guy is a master. I would say like I've been working with Michael Wynn. He's a master of internal alchemy for sure. The dude can tap into some serious stuff, but I don't. I don't call him master. It's just again the like title, like, oh, I'm master, I'm grandmaster. I don't know. I don't like that whole trip myself. Mick, MK MK Truff Fael says, "What do you think of magnetism for sexual healing?" I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. Magnetism for sexual healing, like improving your magnetism to do sexual healing, or like working with magnetism to working with polarities to sexual healing. I'm not exactly sure what you're meaning by that. Ugo ND says, "How do you synchronize the inhale and exhale with the small universe?" Uh, Various ways. Sometimes I don't even synchronize. Here's the whole thing: is people often get caught up on like breath in internal energy practice and qigong. Breath is a great. I would say breath and like breath synchronization. Think of it as like training tools or like training wheels on a bike. Um, in the beginning, yes, it helps you to kind of focus and coordinate the movement of energy with your breath because it gives you something to focus on and feel like there's this process happening, this yin yang process, which the breath is. But ultimately, you can get overly stuck in that where you start worrying about, oh, should I be exhaling as the energy goes up and inhaling as it comes down? Or, but this book said it the other way. Someone's got to be wrong. And eventually, you want to get beyond that training wheel stage to where your energy moves regardless of how you're breathing. You know, and eventually you hold your breath. You're not breathing at all, and you're able to perform the microcosmic orbit, the small universe. Whatever. So breath is just a training wheel. You can inhale it up or exhale as you move it up. Both work, and eventually you learn to pressurize your chi so much that it just is a blasting current. Just with your mind affecting it. That's been my experience. Majin Wolf says, "Hey Jonathan, I have a lot of energy stuck in my head. It often feels heavy and even get dizzy. What exercise do you recommend to bring it down?" So very common. Too much yang, rising chi up into the head. The most important thing is prevention of this happening in the first place, because it can be really hard to get this chi in your head to get out. Right. So the first thing is prevent it from going up there in the first place. And this relates a lot to what I was talking about earlier with the congestion, the heart chi. Too much time sitting on a screen, too much thinking, and especially if you're doing, depending what types of cultivation practices you're doing. If you're doing like intense, forceful practices, like I was doing Kundalini yoga for years, and this was pretty much 24/7, too much energy in the head. So I simply had to stop doing it and do grounding practice. That's what got me into Qigong. So if you're doing microcosmic orbit, anything like that, don't use a lot of force. Relax your mind. Probably too much effort, too much mental effort. Very common for us. We're all in this modern world where we're all up in our head. So that's kind of the prevention is, staying calm, staying grounded. And basically you want to ground the energy out, ground it back down, getting in your body. Sometimes doing like intense physical exercise can help kind of burn this off. Getting in the water, jumping in a cold pond or an ice bath. Triple heater sound. Raise your hands up, you face the palms down, kind of stretch open, lao gong a little bit, and make a he sound. and just sweep your awareness to your body. It's like your body's an empty tube, and you're just clearing all the way out through your feet into the earth. Do this like 10 times. Great practice to do before going to sleep. That's a helpful one. Qigong in general, like gentle, effortless Qigong, if you're not excessively focused and forcing energy, will help get the energy out of your head. Zhanzhuang practice is an incredible practice for grounding. If you're able to really sink your chi in it, look up on YouTube, standing meditation, Zhanzhuang on my YouTube channel. Phenomenal practice for grounding your energy. Paul Bright says, lately, after opening up my microcosmic orbit through my 30-minute morning practice, the feeling of clarity and openness doesn't last that long anymore. And after an hour of working, I'm all in my mind. So this isn't uncommon where, I experienced this as well. Where suddenly there was a time in my life where I was like, oh, I'm feeling amazing in my morning practice. And then after an hour of doing this or that, I'm stuck in my head again. So I think it eventually becomes about extending your practice beyond just the formal practice itself, being able to keep this awareness and this flow throughout your daily life. This was something I've been really working on, the past couple of years, of really embodying this presence and this energy flow beyond just, okay, I'm out in the park doing my Qigong. It's easy to be in the flow. It's easy to move my Qi and feel peaceful. But what about when I'm, in the shit, whatever I'm doing, you're stuck in traffic, you're on a stressful project, someone's yelling at you, whatever. How do I keep that flow going then, right? So being able to maintain that flow state and that practice outside of just the duration of it itself. And maybe also just taking a break to do the 6 healing sounds, spend a couple minutes doing that and just, shaking it off, something. It's all about maintaining this flow throughout your day, I would say, and learning to get out of your head more, which is easy to say, but not easy to do. So just being aware of like presence within your body, like notice when you're starting to like move faster, talk faster, you kind of get out of your center and be like, oh, okay, let's calm down. Let's feel, let's bring my mind back into my body. Take a couple deep breaths and just get back in the flow. This is the real Jedi training, is maintaining that throughout your day. I would say that. And I know I'm not claiming to have mastered this, but I've gotten a lot better at it. Alex555 says, been dealing with anorgasmia for a while. Any suggestions? So this can be, it can be a lot of things. It can be maybe you don't really feel safe for whatever reason, for whatever reason, being in your body. It's like maybe you're really up in your head. I mean, I think there's definitely a trend recently of a lot more stress, a lot more people stuck in their heads, a lot more, kind of disconnection from the body and the processes of nature. It's the world we live in. So it's more challenging, definitely, to stay in our center, stay in that state of equilibrium. And for me, it's all about what can I do to get back in that state as much as possible. For me, what's really helpful is being in nature, obviously doing my practices, but getting out, going for a hike, sitting near a river and just feeling that flow of water chi. And again, just taking more off your plate, taking more time to just chill, to lay on the earth, breathe in that sweet nature energy, making sure you're getting in your exercise, physical exercise and everything. But getting back into the body, supporting that kidney chi. This has been a big theme today, of rebuilding that kidney yin, that vitality, that core vitality, and that juiciness of really feeling in your body, moving your hips, getting everything open, and it's getting more grounded, really getting more deep into your sexual center and your embodiment. I hope that's helpful. Mr. Julian says, what do you think about using subliminals and frequencies? These are external things that can be helpful. Subliminals, you know, I don't really work with them personally, but if you find it helpful, that's great. The frequency can definitely be powerful, in that, we're swimming in this ocean of frequencies. Uh, I was, I heard a story about, so there's this factory, right? I think this was a while ago, where a lot of the workers who worked at this factory were getting sick. They were getting chronic illnesses and all these things. But there was only like four people in this factory who weren't. And this guy was studying this because he was working with, frequency type of work. And he got these four people, and he realized the four of them were in like a classical music quartet or something. So they're going home and they're retuning their bodies to, these beautiful frequencies playing music, versus like, you're in a factory, this low, ultra low frequency machine noise, things like that. It tunes your body to dissonant frequencies and you feel ill. So there's definitely something to frequency for sure. For me, I'm a musician. So, and I always felt that, I play guitar, I play other instruments too, but I always felt that it was like a medicine for me to be playing music. And I always just feel amazing when I'm playing music a lot. And it makes sense because it's literally retuning you. So frequencies are important for sure. And like when you go out into nature, listening to the birds sing, the sound of the water moving, you're retuning yourself to a harmonious frequency rather than the dissonant frequencies we get tuned to living in the city. So there's definitely something to that. Okay. Question in the chat. My testosterone levels were 437. Is that low in your opinion? So I'm not sure if this is the same scale that what I'm familiar with, but I believe I would consider supposedly in this modern world, about 500 is an average testosterone level for men. But relative to the past, it's lower. I've heard, and I'm not sure if this is true, but I've heard that about 1,000 is what used to be a normal testosterone level for men. And so compared to this, yes, 500 below, 430, 400, whatever it was, I would consider to be a bit low testosterone. Not as low as like, the super, super depleted guys, but yes, it is a relatively low testosterone level. But another thing here is what's actually more important than just your overall testosterone is your free testosterone, because you can have super high testosterone levels, but if your free testosterone is low, it doesn't mean anything. What this means basically is having a high level of testosterone, when it's bound up to estrogen, to other things, right? When it's bound up, there's no free testosterone to actually use, for what we want to have the benefits of in the body. So improving your free testosterone is very, very important. You can look up how, different ways to do this. Something I will mention though is boron is a very helpful way. Cycling boron supplements, I take about 10 milligrams a day. Most people are getting no boron in their diet because it's depleted from the soil of the earth. It's very hard to get it in your diet. So I highly recommend that men supplement this. I take 10 milligrams of boron, 2 weeks on, 1 week off. I noticed a pretty significant difference from it. Cutting body fat, all kinds of things will help your free testosterone levels. That's one of the most important things to focus on as far as testosterone is your free testosterone. Tammy Marks, Healthy Lifestyle, says, what is your favorite podcast or book you highly recommend in your field? I feel like with podcasts, I just like randomly, I go through phases. Sometimes I listen to podcasts. I'm more of an audiobook person, but some of my favorite books on the subject of sexual cultivation, number one would be Taoist Secrets of Love, Cultivating Male Sexual Energy by Montauk Chia and Michael Wynn. Really great book. Some of the practices are a bit outdated, but it's a great book overall. Really comprehensive information in that. As far as Qigong and energy cultivation, there's a book called Qigong, The Way of Energy by Lam Kam Chuen. A really great book on Qigong. A more very advanced actually book on Taoist sexual practices is what's it called? Taoist Sexual Meditation by Bruce Francis. It's pretty advanced. Tao of Sexology by Dr. Stephen Chang is another great one as well. Sexual Kung Fu classic. Pure Present says, have you noticed that some girls trigger ejaculation way more than other girls? What's that all about? This is a good question. And I think that it may definitely be some truth to this, because I talk about ejaculation control a lot, obviously, and most of the things I share are just like this is what the man should do. But the reality, in reality, I would say about 80 to 90% of the work is the man, and being a commander of his own body. That's the majority of the work. But the partner's energy will have an effect on your ability to hold or to not be able to hold your ejaculation. So one thing that's important to understand as well is that the more aroused a woman is, the more that her water energy is flowing, the more activated her womb space is. So she's, fully moist and ready, fully aroused. Then her own kind of sexual yang fire is already cooking, right? And if it's not there, if she's not aroused, she's not really actually feeling it, then there's a tendency for her yoni to actually pull on your energy, to pull your yang into it because you're the closest source, right? And so that can cause a feeling of urgency and ejaculation. And there's a lot of other factors as well. Some women are really also where a woman's at on her cycle will have an effect. I've noticed just a bit more of pulling, the yoni, the womb has it's a sucking type of energy. It's yin. It's the female yin sexual energy. It's like a vacuum. It pulls things into it. They can pull all kinds of things and they pull us into them, right? And us men are trying to find things to put ourselves into, right? That's the yin yang dynamic there. But where depending where a woman's is at on her cycle during the ovulation, there's much more of this sucking in energy because it's her fertility period where her body wants to become pregnant, and there's a tendency for it to really pull on your energy. And I've noticed that on when my partner's when she's ovulating, there's more of a pull on my semen. So I have to really be on my game. Okay, Lucius, I'm not sure if part of your question cut off. All I see is depletion. I do semen retention, but then become too sensitive to last vicious cycles. Sometimes YouTube cuts off some of the comments here. Kenzie says, I do Kundalini yoga and we squeeze the pelvic floor muscle, only squeeze during yoga. What's the best way to relax the muscle? Well, to allow it to relax, right? But if you have a lot of tension there, doing reverse Kegels, which is like a mild pushing out, like a stretching of the pelvic floor, and deep belly breathing as well, you feel that kind of diaphragm expand and push out the pelvic floor, is very helpful. Also different stretches. One of the best is a deep kind of Hindi squat, where you're in a deep squatting position, breathing deep into the pelvic floor. When you're in that deep squat, breathing from your belly, it will naturally cause a reverse Kegel, this expansion of the pelvic floor to happen. Life with David says, recently encountered someone teaching Taoists stroking. Is that a thing, or is he just getting off on teaching guys to jerk off? I'm not exactly sure the full context of this. Like someone was jerking off, like a video of them jerking off teaching the work, or if they're like teaching specific ways to stroke, specific ways to stimulate your penis. I mean, either way is like, whatever. People have different ways of how they want to present this information. And I think it's valuable for men to learn different ways to stimulate their penis than just do this until they're numb. So, depending on the integrity of what they're teaching, I don't really have any strong feelings about it. Danny P says, how to remedy psychological erectile dysfunction and performance anxiety for young men. This is all about being too much in your head, being nervous. And it's understandable. And also watching porn definitely can basically cause erectile dysfunction in men. Watching porn messes with your dopamine receptors, completely hijacks your arousal chemistry to where you require very high levels of arousal to maintain an erection. Otherwise, you're having normal sex with just a real life partner. It's not as crazy and stimulating as porn. You don't get erect. Psychological ED, porn-induced erectile dysfunction. That may be one aspect of it. The solution there is stop watching porn, get your dopamine receptors back into balance, stop spending a lot of time scrolling through social media, just overstimulating your dopamine levels. But I think that training in sexual kung fu is really the ultimate way to overcome this, because this is something I definitely experienced in the past, having a bit of performance anxiety and sometimes affecting my erections. And when you train in sexual kung fu, you get to know your body and your mind and how they interact and your sexual energy so well that you feel confident and you're not worried about what's going to happen when you connect with the partner, because you know what your body's going to do. At least you to a high degree, you understand how to work with it, right? So, meditation, qigong, learning to relax your nervous system during times of stress. This is the basic skills, circulating your sexual energy. These are the skills for being calm and in control during sex. And this is what I teach in depth into, all my material. I've got a lot of free practices on YouTube. I go very into depth into the whole systematic training in my multi-orgasmic man course. Basically, yes, you must train yourself to stay calm and to be not stuck in your head thinking, but in your body feeling grounded, breathing like a rock, like a solid rock. And, you no longer feel performance anxiety. NBS says, should somebody who can't control his desires, an addict, go cold turkey on retention for a period, or is it better to just reduce the amount of ejaculating like once in a month? I mean, if you only ejaculate once in a month, you're getting the full benefits of semen retention, because there's actually, for some men, beyond a certain point, once you rebuild all this energy you've lost, ejaculating once a month is not going to be a depletion. So that's totally fine to do, and you're going to get most of the benefits from semen retention if you only ejaculate once a month. But you can also go for longer if you so choose. But I think the most realistic starting point for most men is to start sequentially. Like, okay, for me, 4 days is an accomplishment. That's how it was for me when I began this, right? I would go 4 days between ejaculations, and then that became easy. And I was learning the non-ejaculatory orgasm practice. I was like, okay, I'm going to try going 2 weeks. And then that became pretty easy. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try going a month and then longer, and then finding my ideal period, basically, right? I think that's a great way to go about it. But the important thing is not just, you're like, okay, I can't ejaculate. That's bad. That's wrong. And creating all this guilt and shame around it. I think it's more important to be like, okay, what would be more ideal for myself? Circulating this sexual energy, having non-ejaculatory orgasm experiences, and really doing something with that energy. Because otherwise you're just hoarding this energy, and if you don't have anything new you're putting it into, it's going to just drive you crazy as a period of time. So this is, again, seeing this as a holistic lifestyle rather than just like, I need to build more energy for I don't know why. You'll be more successful in the long run with the right approach and a harmonious cultivation practice. Okay, Jong says, I have one question. I had my first body orgasm by letting my energy flow from my pelvis to my body. How can I improve that work? Is that dangerous without a yoga teacher? I don't think it's necessarily dangerous without a yoga teacher, unless you're getting like full-blown Kundalini stuff. But as far as getting better at it, practice, doing meditation, doing energy sensitizing practices, learning to open up your channels and kind of control the flow of energy or guide the flow of energy through. This is why I recommend, qigong meditation practices. So just, doing some of these more foundational practices, working with the breath, guiding the energy, and you'll be able to have a more kind of systemic approach of working with this. Mr. Julian says, a bit off topic, but do you know a way to protect yourself from radiation like 5G, EMF, and stuff? Can my body recover from radiation by going in nature? Going in nature is a great way to recover and kind of, again, reset your system. But when we're in the city, we're just bombarded with EMF. It's a very serious, I will say, survival concern for humans, how to survive EMF, because there's a lot to cover up, the damages that it's doing to humans, the distortions of our DNA, the cutting of our telomeres, all kinds of weird growths in the body from this excessive EMF exposure. This is the world we live in. But yes, there is things you can do to protect yourself from it. One of the best things to do is to get EMF blocking devices for your house. There's you can search this, you'll find a lot of different things. What I recommend, number one, is shungite. This is a natural stone. It's a mineral. It's a stone. It comes from the earth. It blocks EMF. Russian scientists did a study. They put it near, I think, like a television or something, and the shungite blocked, I think, 80 or 90% of the EMF coming from that device. So uh, I like to put shungite all over my house. There's also orgonite. This is a technology that also generates, it restructures, we could say, the energy in the field around it, and it tends to eat EMF and put out negative ions instead. So orgonite, shungite, put those, definitely keeps them around your, cell phone router, puts them all over the house, and that will help. Pure Presence says, lately I've had a lot of girls request rough sex. It's not my favorite because it desensitizes, but I also want to give them what they want. How would you deal with this? Well, um, I think that adding in some variety into sex, like sometimes it's nice to just, go to town, be rough and crazy, but it's also nice to be very, very slow and meditative and feeling. I think a lot of this comes from porn conditioning. We, men and women as well, more and more women are becoming porn addicts as well. They watch porn and they're like, oh, that's what it's so like, oh, close up angles and so exciting. And oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And they overstimulate themselves so that they require this intense level of stimulation just to feel anything, right? Their bodies are oversensitized. It goes back partially to rebalancing the nervous system, but also if you simply try alternating periods of, going really rough and then being very, very slow, and it will often create this desire for them. It creates dynamics, and they may actually start to be more sensitized, like, oh, this slow movement, it makes me want the more rough movement, but it's actually really, really nice. And it builds desire. It builds some like what's the word, apprehension of what's coming next, and give them a bit of variety in their experience. They say, oh, actually these periods of slowing down and having some more dynamic experience is great. Traveling Lick says, I really respect you and commend you for sharing your insight and personal story. This is really powerful for men and women. Bless. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious to me that this is some of the most important work that the world needs. That's why I started doing this. It's like, man, people are fucked up sexually and they need some help. So it's basically why I started this, because I think that a lot of our issues really come from this sexual traumas, sexual frustrations, incompletions. It gets expressed in other weird ways. I mean, wars, conflicts, all kinds of crazy shit that humans do. A lot of it comes down to just not knowing how to deal with their sexual energy, pure and simple. Through religious suppression, political manipulation, all these things, it just turns our sexual energy into a ticking time bomb of self-destruction, where instead it can be this powerful, rejuvenating fountain of youth and bliss and joy and heaven on earth, right? It's like, what do you want? Atomic war or Garden of Eden? I choose the bliss and the healing personally. Okay, guys, just a couple more questions. I'm going to wrap this up. Jong says, and what teaching should I dive into, Qigong or yoga? Depends what your goals are, depends what you want to accomplish. I practice both. I dove really deep into yoga and felt like I kind of hit a brick wall as far as like energy cultivation. I wasn't having any like tangible energy experiences. It definitely healed my body in a lot of ways and helped me develop a lot of discipline and grounded me. But Qigong is what really taught me how to connect with and feel tangibly the energy flowing through the body and direct it. And it opened up a whole new level of experience and healing for me. So, do you want more kind of like body centric, more like specifically like yoga asana practice? It's a bit more just like kind of physical body opening and balancing. That's great. But Qigong is more energy body overall, as the name implies. But I mean, I think doing both is great, honestly. Okay, Smallsy Samuel says, hello, mate. Would you say pretty much your whole outlook on life changes for the better if you don't bash off every day? I think so. I mean, again, when you're jerking off every day, let me say this, when you're ejaculating every day unconsciously, you're just throwing your life force away and you're in a low period of depletion constantly 24/7. And you feel this empty after a while, in your teenage years, your body can handle it. But once you hit your 20s, you're just in depletion. And yeah, you feel depressed, you feel lethargic, and you always feel empty inside. So you're always trying to like find other things to fill yourself up with from the outside. Whereas when you stop doing that, you have a lot more vitality, more life force, and this fullness and this desire, this drive to, do things in life. You'll be a bit more driven and ambitious and healthy. Lucius says, should a man in his 40s not be able to perform after having one orgasm with a girl? It's like my body refuses to go another round without long refractory period. If it's an ejaculatory orgasm, and this is fairly common. This is why the older you get, it's men, once they hit their 30s and 40s, that's when they really need to start managing their sexual energy. Definitely start regulating ejaculations and spread them out a lot more. And even in their men in their 20s now, it's becoming more important because there's so much excessive sexual stimulation. The men are becoming depleted at younger and younger ages. So it's I would say it's normal for a 40-year-old to have a long refractory period. You can support this tonic herbs, supporting the kidney chi. I'm talking about that a lot today. But yeah, the best thing is to really get good at the sexual kung fu practices and drawing the sexual energy up. And avoiding ejaculation frequently, for sure. Royal Calvin says, do you practice meditation breathing techniques as well? Yes, I practice a lot of breathing techniques. I got way into pranayama for many years, holotropic breath work. Now my breath work's pretty simple. I'm doing more just very, very simple Taoist breathing, which is really you just watch the breath, you observe the breath, get your attention, and it starts to transform on its own. I also use like alchemical breathing practices, reverse breathing, bellows breathing, all these very subtle. It's more like energy body manipulation than actual like I'm doing a breathing technique. But yeah, I think breath work is amazing for a lot of reasons. And it's something I focus on a lot because it really helps you to change your state, shift your state very easily. Gets you high. Breathing. Lucia says, so I can't practice with girls because every orgasm leads to depletion, and after doing semen retention, I'm too sensitive to last longer. A vicious cycle. Okay. So basically, yeah, every time you're having sex with a woman, you're ejaculating, and yeah, in your 40s, it's depleting you, refractory period. This is why it's important to train on your own, I think, to learn these practices on your own, because yeah, for a lot of men, it's just not going to happen when they're having sex with a woman. And so that's why you want to really do a lot of solo practice, learn how to, and especially when you're doing semen retention, this is the thing. If you're doing semen retention and you're not releasing that pressure internally through the internal breathing, microcosmic orbit, qigong, then your penis is just a loaded gun, 100%. And as soon as it's touched, it's going to go off, right? This is why so men experience premature ejaculation from doing semen retention, because they're not actually training. They're just letting this part of the body kind of atrophy, right? And so this is why you want to sharpen the sword. Practice arousing yourself, practice moving the energy out of the genitals, do your reverse Kegels, your pelvic floor exercises to, keep the energy from getting tense in that area, and practice on your own. It really is, you've got to match this on your own before you jump into bed and do this with others. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. Good to see everyone. Again, Sexual Kung Fu Men's Retreat in Asheville, North Carolina next month. 5 days of intensive sexual Kung Fu training, Qigong, meditation, breath work, good food, good people, sexual energy practices as well, of course. Find more information, my Instagram bio, and the link in the description of this video as well. And there's still some spaces open. Take care, everyone. I will see you next time. Probably be going live again next week. So take care, my friends.